what are they seeing in what are you seeing in your practice in the area of suicide? Like, what are the factors behind the climbing rates, Harrison?
Um, I've been seeing a lot of individuals who have ideations and thoughts of wanting to harm themselves. I've actually lost three from suicide in in my practice. I would say that was unexpected. Um, yeah, it was.
I'm so
It's just
sorry.
kind of, it's very heartfelt to
Yes.
just think about how someone can reach a point in life where
Yeah.
well, they don't see hope and
Yeah.
not really appreciate you bringing this because this is a very tough topic. We have
Yeah.
over 10 Canadians per day that commit suicide in our country. And it's just getting worse with this pandemic because people are very hopeless,
Right.
and it's growing. It's a growing epidemic, and I think people just don't know what to do. And so a program like this that we can really put the seed of hope that God has a plan for our lives and we
Yes.
don't need to end it. I think that's really the greatest seed we can plant in the hearts of individuals pertaining to
Yeah.
suicide.
Well, thank you for sharing, Harrison. That was difficult, and I'm sorry for the loss you are experiencing as a frontline worker. Mary, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with Harrison. I mean, it's skyrocketed, and it's not just the fear of COVID. The financial implications are
Mhm.
huge too. When people feel like they don't have the security of their finances, they lose jobs. People are having to live within a small space. There's so many factors that can affect that,
Right.
and even if people are not actually attempting suicide, I would say the suicidal ideation has increased significantly,
Right.
Yes.
because it's hard to see hope. It just seems like, is this going to go on forever? And even if this particular virus gets addressed, is there going to be another one? And
Right.
people can spiral down pretty quickly when they feel like
Mhm.
there's no hope.
Well, I think you've hit it right on the head when there's no hope. And that's why we are focused on understanding suicide so that we can
Yeah.
have hope. What are some indicators that you or someone you love might be at risk, Mary?
Yeah. Well, first of all, one of the challenges is that if somebody is really intent on wanting to commit suicide, they can be excellent at hiding it. So, for those family members who may have lost a loved one to suicide, very common to go into the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and lots of shame over how they could have
Hmm.
missed it. So, please keep that in mind. If somebody's really intent on it, they will hide it. Um, the people who are struggling with suicidal thought, who still are wanting to reach out, they will tend to see shifts in their mood, not just down, but actually sometimes they can be very angry. Anger can be a sign of depression, and I would say even males may be more likely to express anger. If there's any sort of moods that don't seem related to what's happening, it just
Right.
seems unpredictably there, or this prolonged sadness, inability to even get out of bed, withdrawing significantly, just seems like they're not able to cope with life,
Right.
and definitely suicidal thought. You'll hear them talking about it,
Okay.
especially as you invite conversation about that. Now,
Okay.
with kids, if I can add to that, kids and adolescents, unfortunately, we're also seeing a rise in suicidal attempts with kids. And they're not going to look the same. They're not going to always give you the same cues. Often it's more behavioral problems, withdrawing, and maybe they're doing less well at school. They just don't seem to be thriving.
Mm.
And those are signs that, if not suicide, at least there's something going on with them, with their mental health. And it's,
Right.
as family, we need to lean into that and
Right.
ask them how they're doing, find out what's going on.
Right. Checking in. Good. Andrew, your response?
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dr. Mary and Harrison has said. Um, I find that when our family cultures aren't able to talk about what we're experiencing authentically, we deprive ourselves of the community that we have at even at home.
Hmm.
So sometimes we're so afraid of the possibility that we don't talk about it. And in that is the actual healing. Because just because you have a thought of suicide doesn't mean that you are really considering it
Right.
or that you intend to follow through on it. But sometimes we're so unfamiliar with our own thoughts and our inner world that we think, oh, this crossed my mind. That means I'm suicidal.
Right.
And then we panic, and then we find ourselves in this cycle where we do feel powerless even over our own thoughts. Forget the outside world. Sometimes we feel so powerless with our own lives
Right.
and our own emotions and our own thoughts. So I definitely want to encourage people, when people say things, let's not shut down the conversation. Let's not dismiss it. Let's not belittle what somebody says they're experiencing. If you don't feel prepared to handle it, welcome it and invite somebody else into the conversation, because more times than not, we're thinking these things for a long time, but we don't have an avenue of expression.
Wow, I think you've hit on something really huge. And so, this next question, I think you've already begun to answer here. What are some practical ways in which we can respond to a loved one who may be expressing suicidal thoughts? So, Andrew, you just said, like, don't shut down the conversation. Harrison, can I get you to respond to that?
Absolutely. So, some of the things I think that, like someone had said earlier on, when someone have these thoughts, it can be active or passive thoughts, but we should not ignore them. The ones that I've lost, they were reaching out, but it was unexpected when it happened. And perhaps, there is an assumption that the person went too far. I had someone, like, I don't need to share how they died, but it was very terrifying because, like Mary said, the family members were questioning what they could have done.
Right.
And I think that, when you know someone and you start seeing changes in their behavior, like they start withdrawing themselves, or sometimes they may want to get rid of stuff that you thought, like, something, why would you want to get rid of something that is so precious to you? There are different signs. Or even if they do express that, they're not feeling well and sometimes they want to kill themselves in particular, we do need to reach out, maybe reach out to a crisis line. Maybe you can reach out to Mary and other people who in the professional world, who can maybe do some suicide assessments, risk assessments, and see what kind of support we can put in place versus allowing culture and allowing our own personal belief to get in the way and think it's going to go away. It would not go away. Once a thought is there, we need to find resolutions. Otherwise, the thought will come again in our most vulnerable time when we're struggling, especially in the time we're living in today. And it pops up in the surface. And as Christians, sometimes I believe the devil uses the thoughts against us, where it makes it even worse. And we start believing all these negative things, and then, we have a negative end result.
Yeah. Well, one of the steps at 700 Club Canada, we have a 24/7 prayer line, 24/7, 1-855-759-0700. We're here for you. We have resources for you. We have people who will pray for you. And we do believe in the power of prayer and community and the power of God to break off these suicidal thoughts and to bring hope into your future. We will be right back with more conversation with our guests.